Hi Ramesh.
Hi Akash, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. That's all right.
We had farewell of our colleague.
Yeah. No, that's okay. We'll wait.
No, people are joining in. So I think we shall start.
Okay.
So I'll just introduce about the session, give a brief about the session, and then I'll hand over to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Akash. I am working in financial inclusion team, and we have Ramesh Arunachalam with us. So he'll be guiding us through this session. And just a brief introduction of Ramesh. He's an international economic development professional, and with specialization in financial inclusion, MSME space, then insurance, pension, every aspect of social security, then technology and artificial intelligence also, then investments, and the list goes on. And he has also authored multiple publications, especially focusing on the use of technology recently. And yeah, he has also been part of IFI initiative. He was the editor of IFI report and also authored couple of chapters in the report. So he'll be talking about the AI aspect into the financial inclusion space, the ecosystem, and setting up the context. So, as we all know, that we have entered the space and the phase of artificial intelligence, and in the midst of digital marathon, we started back in 1990s with computer and internet uh, moving around, and since now we have internet and every type of digital proof in hand on our fingertips using our smartphones. So AI is a part of our life, and how AI plays an important role in our professional space and also in the sector, especially in financial inclusion. So yeah, Ramesh will be talking about this. Yeah, so Ramesh, over to you, and looking forward to a very insightful session. And let's dive into the AI and the coming age technology solutions.
Hi. I'll just say hi to everybody, put on the video, and then switch off the video because I'm very conscious when I speak. Hi. Hi to everyone. This is Ramesh. Look
Ramesh, you
forward
need
to.
to you need to pull down your camera a little. We can only see your hair, black hair.
Yes, that's right. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah,
Fine. Cool. All right. So anyway, the image goes now. I will not. I'm very conscious as a speaker, so that's why I've shut off the image during the questions. I don't like looking at the PowerPoint or the script, and I don't play to a script. So it's going to be pretty much extempo. I'll try and keep it very practical. I'll try and share with you experiences that I've had. I'm going through. with regard to AI and financial inclusion. Is that okay?
Perfect. And perfect. And I mean uh, the structure would be, Ramesh.
The structure would be, I would talk about the importance of financial inclusion, just a preamble, then talk of the different applications of AI and financial inclusion, describe each one of them, some examples, and say where the future is headed there, and then also bring out some challenges and cautionary issues on the use of AI, and then let's look at what the future looks like, and then open up for questions. Is that okay?
Perfect, perfect. And I hope we are okay if someone has any query or question in between, or we'll take questions after the session. Or you,
I think it's better after the session. I'll go through one shot, right? Okay. They can note it down. And then if there is, I doubt if they will, I mean, the questions will be more applicative. So I think they can be addressed in better detail at the end.
and yeah, okay, okay. And we have 45 minutes with us,
Okay.
because we would not like to hold on people since it's a weekend starting.
Right.
Yeah, so 45 minutes, and in which 30 minutes for the session, and then after that 15 minutes for the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 25-20, whichever. I think Q&A.
Yeah, okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
More
Okay.
people are joining.
Let me get right into it. So
Okay.
I think all of us understand what financial inclusion is, but I just wanted to bring out 2 points here. Am I audible, first of all? Am I clear? My voice is clear?
Yes, it's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. See, one is we're talking financial inclusion is a dynamic construct. It's not static. It's not one time. I may be included today. I may not be included tomorrow. So I think it's a changing construct. Okay. So I think let's keep that's one aspect that I want all of us to keep in mind. And the second is that we are looking for, so that's very important from the sense that we're looking for sustained financial inclusion in the long run, right? Okay. The UN SDG 1.4, UN Sustainable Development Goal 1.4 says we want 100% sustained financial inclusion by 2030. And for that, we need, there are at least 2 billion people who are uh, excluded right now. And those included are not necessarily always included. It's like a game of musical chairs. People coming in, going out, people coming into the system, leaving the system. So imagine that. So it's like a game of musical chairs. So I think given the dynamic nature of financial inclusion, and given the fact that we want to bring in sustained financial inclusion to every possible living adult by 2030, we need to uh, aggressively push financial inclusion, and artificial intelligence promises a lot. Okay, so that's
Yes.
just
And sorry to cut. I hope we can see the screen. I've just shared the
yeah,
presentation.
yeah. But as I said, the screen is going to be is not going to be very useful because I rarely follow the script, but that's all right. But I pretty much cover everything that's there. Don't worry, and more, maybe more. Okay. Shall I go ahead, Akash? Akash.
Yes, 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 please.
Yes. Okay. Great. So, what are the areas in which you can move down? If you can move the slides down, will. What are the areas in which uh, artificial intelligence? What is the role of AI in financial inclusion? Let's look at different places where it's applied. One very important place is credit scoring, right? How do you traditionally, all of you know credit scores. You have your CIBIL, you have your Equifax, you have your uh, other credit bureaus. They typically take your loan data, your repayment data, and they formulate credit scores. Now, that's all right for people who have them. But what about people who don't have them, or who cannot have a meaningful uh, representation of that in a formal sense? How do you track them? So this is some interesting developments have occurred in credit scoring and credit bureaus using unconventional data. So digital data, uh, data like what you use in wallets. I was part of the original team that worked on M-Pesa in Africa, and so where wallet money doesn't come into the payment system, how can that be used? Or any other digital footprint when you buy from when you use any kind of wallet to pay for something, so, or your utility bills. So using all of this, artificial intelligence is able to predict. There are models which predict your ability to pick up a loan and make a repayment. An interesting example in India is Credit Vidya, and there are many more globally which are still at their infancy. And this is a very interesting application. So the use of uh, artificial intelligence in credit scoring. So what it has done is, what it's enabled is, it's brought in a large number of people who were otherwise traditionally excluded into the banking space or into the financial inclusion space, and brought them under formal or semi-formal institutional finance. So that's one application, and this is going to grow because AI, by definition, learns. See, it's an inductivist model. So, what do I mean by an inductivist model? It learns from data. So, as it gathers more and more data, as it gathers more and more data points, its predictive ability will improve. Of course, subject to data quality, which I'm going to talk of in the end, data reliability. But so AI's application in credit scoring is one important space. Okay, moving on. So this is and if you see chapter 7 of the Inclusive Finance Report, we we've talked in great detail about this AI, use of AI in credit scoring, the conceptual basis, and the example, and the differences between traditional credit scoring and AI based credit scoring. So those of you who may be interested can refer to that. Okay. The second place where it's beginning to play an important role, not yet in India, but in other countries, and I'm working with clients, is biometrics. When you look at biometrics, what do you think? You think of Aadhaar. Now, let me give you an example. I'm sure all of you know AEPS, Aadhaar Enabled Payment System, right? Okay. So the Aadhaar authentication has had fairly high levels of failure. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not being critical of the government or the efforts that have been made. They are phenomenal, but at the same time, there is a problem. That's because the Aadhaar system is based on what is called as static biometrics, which means the thumb or the iris scan, the iris scan that you gave at the time of enrollment is what is there. And what happens over time, and particularly for no, people who do a lot of hard physical labor, their hands change, the fingerprints change, they get cuts, there's dirt, there's oil, there's a lot of things with people who work with their hands and feet dirty. And with aging, of course, again, the impressions change. So when you have static biometrics, what's going to happen? What is going to happen is, yeah, this is the right slide. So what's going to happen is that this example is not there. What's going to happen is that you're going to have large amounts of failure rates. And if you look at the RBI payment system data, if you look at the digital payment system data, AEPS transactions have been coming down in the last few years. From 2018 to 2023, there is a downward slope. And that's because authentication failure, right? Now, how does AI help? AI creates a database. So each time you go to authenticate, it takes your new thumb print or new iris scan and updates it to the database. That is called adaptive biometrics. Now, here, this is being tried out in other countries with other clients. Unfortunately, I have NDA, so I can't name clients or countries, but whom I'm working with. But I've written a lot on this in my LinkedIn newsletter, so you can refer that. Adaptive biometrics is the way to go, and AI plays a huge role in that. And what can it do to inclusion? It can reduce authentication rates and authentication failure rates. So if it reduces authentication failure rates, what happens? Transactions go through, and there is more level of usage of that particular kind of system. And AEPS particularly is very useful for those who don't have smartphones, those who don't have, those who are in remote areas. And I think it's very important that India begins to move towards adaptive biometrics. And I think that will happen soon. That's the second application. The third application is very interesting AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants. And we are experiencing a lot of that, but it's also happened in. Can we go back to the diagram? Yeah. So we are experiencing it in different forms, but this is happening in local language also, and this is very useful. And it's happening in Africa, it's happening in Latin America, it's happening in Eastern Europe. So you're finding AI taking over routine tasks that financial institution staff would otherwise be doing. And this is available seamlessly 24/7. So that's very convenient. So and in India, HDFC has tried that, and with some degree of success. And I think you're going to see more of this going forward. Okay, so then I am going to go on to another application which is not there in the diagram, is voice-led payment system. That's your conversational payment system. This is a phenomenal application of AI, and something that I've personally been working on with a client in UK. The UPI has brought in conversational UPI now in a very nascent mode, but there are other experiments in other parts of the world where it has happened to a great degree. And I think this is phenomenal, and particularly for the poor, for the people who lack digital and process literacy, it's going to be huge. I'll tell you why. People who don't have digital or process literacy need to be given that urgently. Otherwise, the digital divide is going to keep happening, whether it's by gender, whether it's by socioeconomic status, whether it's by remoteness, whatever. There is a digital divide, and you're seeing that some people are being left behind. Why does that happen? Not everybody is good at typing in numbers or data on the smartphone. So I think conversational voice-led, I would rather call it voice-led payment systems with an AI interface, can help the user, can help guide them on the way, right? So anytime they get stuck, it guides them, and they get digital and process literacy on the go, right? Okay. So this is voice-led systems. AI is still nascent, but it promises to do a lot, and particularly if it comes in local language. Imagine if you're able to pick up the phone and say in your own language, send this money to so and so, and it can done. See, you already have conversational AI in terms of Siri, Alexa, whatever. But if you're able to do that with enough safeguards in payment systems, and that's a crucial aspect that I'll come to later. Safeguards are important. See, voice is, again, there are many tricky things in voice, and this is why AI has to get more sophisticated. Voice is based on emotion. Sometimes you may be upset. Your voice may sound different. So if you have a static voice biometric, so if you have a biometric that's static and that has a voice recording of yours, and when you emote differently, it may reject your voice. So you need adaptive biometrics. You need to have a sophisticated level of the AI model to be able to use that, which is why you've not seen this in big measure. But as I've written in my LinkedIn newsletter, This is the game changer. This happens when this happens. I think when this happens universally, you're going to see huge amounts of financial inclusion because people love it. Many people find it easier to talk and express themselves rather than to write. And this is where both process and digital literacy can be had on the go. Moving on to another very important application before I come to the others is AI-led fraud detection. Now you have both UPI and Paytm in India, and there are many such payment systems across the world which are using AI for fraud detection. What kind of fraud? There are four. Basically to provide cyber security of different kinds. So you could have DDoS attacks, which means overwhelming um, uh, your uh, your uh, your application. Uh, there could be ransomware. There could be man-in-the-middle attacks, and there could be zero-day attacks. Zero-day attacks. Now AI has repelled off many zero-day attacks. AI has been able to spot vulnerabilities in systems, warn developers, and tell them that here is a vulnerability in the system, plug this before a cyber criminal is able to exploit that loophole and attack. So all of these you're seeing, and I'm sure we have started seeing applications of this when you have when I'm sure when you use I personally use ICICI Bank. So ICICI Bank's application calls you and says, I'm sure you've experienced it when they call you when there's an automated call which says you made a transaction of X amount of rupees. Now, if it's you, then click one. If it's no, click two. Right? Okay. Right now, it's coming to us, also coming to us in a certain language, but it can go into every language. So this is how AI-based fraud detection systems are in use. Now, moving on, in agriculture lending, phenomenal applications of AI are being experimentally tried. Again, if you look at chapter 7 of the Inclusive Finance Report, there you see an example of Satsure and Cropin. You can see both of them, they're examples. They pick up satellite imagery of the place and help the financial institutions underwrite risk along with credit bureau data. And they have a whole range of data from that region in terms of cropping patterns, in terms of rains, in terms of soil conditions, in terms of climatology, and all of that. And based on that, they help underwrite risk. Okay, so AI-led agricultural loaning. I see. Otherwise, your agricultural lending was always based on your field officer visiting the farmer or field officer visiting the field. Now it's possible to identify that place, geomap it, and then say this is typical of this area based on the existing database, and this is how the likely yield would be, and these are the practices carried on by the farmer in those areas, and this is the likely yield, and this is the likely return, and this is what they are likely to have as discretionary income, and this is the amount of loan that can be given. Now, this is all based on existing data, but as more and more newer and newer farmers come in, the system learns more from that, and hopefully, I'll talk about data quality in the end. Hopefully, your data is not biased. Hopefully, your data is not uh, unreliable and invalid, and hopefully, your data doesn't have too much noise. Then I think your underwriting becomes good. Now, if you look at Satshore's experience or Cropin's experience, what they've done in India, I think they've underwritten a fair amount of loans, and we spoke to the financial institutions also, and they were quite happy with the performance, um, which range between 90 to 95% accuracy in terms of predicting default and delinquency. So that's for agricultural loaning, and also other kind. Now, similar experiments are going on with your non-farm sector, for your handicrafts, for your other clusters, for your other SME clusters. Again, it all depends on data. The data is good. If your data is See, I'll come to the issue of data later. But if your data is good, if your data is reliable, if your data is valid, then I think the model does a fairly good job of predicting underwriting risk and predicting and enables inclusion, right? Okay. So there are many. So many of the institutions said many of these people, many of these farmers, we would probably wouldn't have lent to, but for the fact that we had this assistance, both uh, the combination of satellite images and the combination of field-based data. Now, interestingly, there's more advancement that's happening here. You have in Africa and Latin America, two of our clients are my clients are working with farmers through cooperatives where they have established a whole system of sensors, IoTs, Internet of Things, IoT devices. So, which is supplying soil data, which is supplying atmospheric data, which is supplying, and then they also have the images, satellite data. So, all of this is coming into the system. So, as the system gets more enriched and as it gets more representative of the area, then underwriting performance will be even much better. So I think we're moving towards a situation where uh, the more quality data that comes in, this underwriting will get better. Okay, so and then for the well-to-do, you have AI-based personal financial management products and AI-based tailored financial products like in terms of investments and other things. So a lot of those things can happen on. But at this point, I want to talk about the data because everything that the AI does is based on data. So what all of us know with regard to computers, it's garbage in, garbage out. So the first question is your data representative of the population? If you have data that's biased, if you have data that's not representative of the population, then I'm afraid your AI model will do very poorly. Like, for example, classic case, I'll give you an example. Most of the visual recognition systems in the United States that some of my clients have worked with have traditionally failed because the AI model is using data that's based on, I'm sorry, I'm not getting racial, but has used Caucasian data and which has left out the traditional colored people. So it's not able to recognize them at any point in time. So the key is, remember, your AI model is as good as the data that goes into creating it. So I think the first thing that you need to ask is, all right, you have a great AI model, you have different models. Those of you who are more interested can take my email from Akash and write to me, and I can share the specific uh, uh, articles that I've written on them, or you can look at my LinkedIn feed so you can see that. But the point is, if you don't have representative data, I'm afraid AI is going to reflect the bias that exists in society. So I think that's the first point, number one, quality data. So how do you get quality data? How do you get, and what do you mean by quality data? And what do you mean by fair data? So I think the fairness comes in from representativeness. All kinds of people. If only the working poor are included in the AI model, what happens to the 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 migrant poor or others who are not there, or the extremely poor, small and marginal farmers who are found in many of the villages across the country? By the way, I've worked in 705 districts, so I'm well aware of many of the states that you're working in. And there are remote areas, be it Kalahandi, Koraput, Fulbani, or be it in Andhra Pradesh, Rampachudavaram, Mardimalli, Chintapalli, or Lalgarh in West Bengal, or Sahibganj, Goda in Bihar, or other places in UP or Rajasthan. So how do you, unless you have that kind of data into your model, unless you fit that profile, the AI model is not going to do well. I'll give you a very interesting example here. It was tried in the Caribbean on small scale marine fishermen. Now, a fisherman goes out to collect, fisherman goes out to see what is fishing. Fishing is harvesting. It's like gambling, right? You go out to sea, you could get fish, or you need not get fish. On a day, you could get fish which sells for as high as 50,000 rupees. Or you could come back with very little catch that doesn't even cover your diesel cost if you're using a motorized boat, or it doesn't cover the cost of your time if you're using an artisanal boat. Now, most banking system data in the Caribbean did not have data on fishermen. So it could not, the AI model did not recommend a single fisherman for a loan. So I think representativeness in data in terms of the population, representativeness of the data in terms of different pre-existing biases must be there. It should take care of that rather, right? That's number one. Two, it should be free of noise, clear, good data should keep coming in, number one. Number two, AI is a black box. How does it make decisions? None of us know. No, most people don't know. So that is why there is an increased movement towards what is called as explainable AI. Today we are moving towards what is called as explainable AI. When you reject a loan, let's make sure the model gives you reasons for it. It cannot say Ramesh doesn't deserve this loan, or is not eligible for this loan. It needs to tell you why. That many models are still not able to. So I think we need to move away from that black box concept. That's two. Three is the issue which many of you will have in your mind: privacy. What happens to privacy data? What happens? How do you deal with how do you deal with this data that's being stored? It's your data. It's each of us. It's data belonging to each of us. How are you going to safeguard that? And how will you prevent hacking like that happened with Equifax or others? So there are solutions. So they're trying to store it on a blockchain. They're trying to give multiple authentication factors, all of that. So that's happening. So these are some of the challenges there in the area of data. So representativeness and bias, reliability and validity is very important. Unless you have that, your AI model is useless. Data privacy needs to be guaranteed, and data needs to be explained, right? So these are three things. Remember that whenever you look at an AI model, ask, where is the data coming from? Is it representative? Is it free of bias? Is it reliable? And is it valid? And two, how is the data being stored? How is privacy being safeguarded? And three, what is the explainability of the AI model, right? Okay. So that, moving on, I want to touch on one more thing. This is from a client side. From an institutional side, we are seeing a large number of applications. I'll give you an example. I was talking to my friend who happens to be who was 1 year my senior in Regional Engineering College in Trichy, way back in the 80s. He is the MD of Managing Director of Federal Bank. So this was about 2 years ago, and he said, how can AI be used meaningfully? So I gave him an idea. I said, look, you have ATMs, right? So he said, yes. So why don't you attach IoT devices to your ATMs and make sure that it updates this data into a central database every 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or whatever, and gives you a scan picture of the ATM booth. And guess what? What's happened? Very interesting application has come out of that. They've fitted in an IoT device, and that updates into the central server. And then they call up they have a centralized local cleaning agency who cleans the ATMs. So if you happen to step into any Federal Bank ATM, you'll see it's fairly clean because they use IoT and AI to clean it every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, right? So the moment the new image is updated and it's seen as dirty, there is an automatic message that goes out to the cleaning agency, which sends out somebody and cleans it. And this is happening seamlessly across India. That's a cool application. That's a really nice application. So that's one. Now, many of the processes are being many of the processes are beginning to use AI. Internal audits for one, right? Internal audits happen at the frequent times, once a week, and then there is a follow up. There's an action taken report. All of you would have gone through internal audits in different phases. So now you have seamless internal audits, AI based internal audits. It's not there on the slide. Sorry, this is out of the script. This is seamless, and this is happening. This is the latest that's happening, whereby internal audits are happening round the clock for banking systems, and that's great because it helps you in fraud detection. It's also happening with regard to risk management, right? And it's also happening with regard to governance. So the institutional side is also beginning to use it. And if you look at central banks, they're also beginning to integrate it in a meaningful way. And I'll give you an example from India. The RBI governor last year on June 5th, 2023, inaugurated, and please look at chapter 9 of the Inclusive Finance Report, which talks of Antardrashti, which is a new effort by the Reserve Bank, and it is got an early stage AI model, and which we have called for to be developed into a more advanced deep learning AI model, which will be pulling data from your all your systems. So what Antardrashti is going to do is that, so hopefully it's already internally operational in a rudimentary form, but hopefully within a year or two, it will be able to tell us what is the level of inclusion in Bengal, what is the level of inclusion in Kuch Bihar, what is the level of inclusion in Godda, in a mandal in Godda, what is the level of inclusion in Ganjam or Gajpati, or what is the level of inclusion in Rampachodavaram or Madimalli, or what is the level of inclusion in Raisen or Indore or some other place. So it's going to pull data from your banking systems, your savings, your current accounts, your loans, all that data. It's going to pull any insurance data that's available from the insurance regulator. It's going to pull PFRDA data. It's going to pull your Atal Pension Yojana. It's going to pull your national pension scheme. It's going to pull all your micro insurance data, and it's going to, and if you've invested in the capital markets, also SEBI data. It's all going to bring it all together, make an analytical and use an analytical model to throw out what is the level of inclusion in any particular place. Again, this will be aggregated data. See, what they're taking care is to see that every data, see, two things are happening here. This is a very interesting experiment that Reserve Bank is doing, where it's applying using AI for financial inclusion. And this is going to give us a fairly accurate dynamic picture of a dynamic construct. The FI index that the Reserve Bank of India has already used so far is a static measure of a dynamic construct, because they come out once in a year and say what access is, what usage is, what quality is. But Antardrashti will give you at real-time financial inclusion data. What is financial inclusion today in Malda and Murshidabad? What is financial inclusion 24 hours from now in Malda and Murshidabad? So I think it's very interesting. And what they've done is every data is going to be tagged by a unique identifier, but protected. So nobody can get the name or profile. Nobody can profile you. See, that's the danger with AI. Why do you say privacy should be safeguarded? You don't want racial, social, or any kind of profiling, right? Because then you can segregate and move away people. So that brings in bias. So aggregated data is going to be available. Individual data, though tagged along with the unique ID, which will give you mutually exclusive entities. See, at the end of the day, your data has to be accurate. You cannot, unless it's tied to a unique ID, it will not be mutually exclusive, right? Okay. See, the problem that we faced before Aadhaar came was in a village, in a particular state, you would, and within that hamlet, not even revenue village, within a hamlet, you will find 4 people with the same initials living in the same village. How will you distinguish them? right? And this is something which you will all have seen in your field work. At least I experienced it when I used to go to the field. And so the unique ID helps that way. But then the Reserve Bank has made sure that this data, this individual profiling will not be available. Nobody can use the data from the system for individual profiling, and that's a great thing. And that's a great thing. Antardrishti has got a long ways to go, but if it can pull all this data and give you real-time financial inclusion index data at any time, anywhere, financial inclusion, then I think we'll know we'll know what steps to take. See, unless you know where you're falling behind, unless you know where which portions of your country are lagging behind in what kind of financial inclusion, are savings accounts lagging, or now very interesting question that I was speaking to somebody in and they were saying very interesting things can happen with this kind of data. They're going to have the SHG data also in there, so you can find out. Please read chapter 3. There is a very interesting point made in chapter 3 of the Inclusive Finance Report, which says our 6.9 million SHGs have been credit linked, but there are 13.4 million SHGs, right? So the question is, and if you look at the individual state level data, and this is something which the authors made during their presentations, and Akash was also there when we had those discussions, where SHG savings being held as collateral to lend to them, right? Now, this determination you can make when Antardrishti is available. You'll be able to know clearly, right? Okay. It will give you a clear sense of what level of savings is there in the system and what level of savings is lent out. It will give you ideas on your credit deposit ratio. And so a number of questions, number of analytical questions can be answered, which will help you further financial inclusion. So again, back to this, there are just give a quick summary. There are a whole range of applications at the client level. You can use AI for the credit scoring to increase inclusivity. You can use AI for fraud detection to enable safety, because people will transact only if it's safe. And you can use AI for adaptive biometrics to ensure that the authentication failure rates are low. You can use AI for underwriting loans and underwriting agriculture loans particularly. And then you can use AI for chatbots. You can use AI for voice-based systems and the like. At the institutional level, you can use it for internal audits, risk management, governance, and many of your other processes. But you need a clear AI strategy. You need an AI strategy. It's not like you can just go in and do it. So one of the things that I've been working on with many clients is that getting the boards, getting the institutions, whether it's I haven't worked with small finance banks, but I worked with commercial banks outside India to help develop an AI strategy, right? Unless you have an AI directional strategy paper in place, you will not be able to decide which areas can be subject to AI and what are the data requirements for that, how do you get that, and how do you transition from a manual to an AI-based system. So that's something that's at the institutional level that's happening. But the most important thing in all of that, whether it's client or institutions, make sure your data is excellent. High quality data that's representative, high quality data without bias, and reliable and valid data in the sense of measuring what they're supposed to be measuring, and ensure data privacy. And most importantly, make sure your AI model is not a black box and people understand decisions made by AI. You just can't say AI made it, so it's good. The system says it. Many a time people have come back and told me, system has rejected you. Are yaar, what is the system rejecting me for? Tell me at least. I think I deserve to know. I need to know. Is it rejecting me because I'm tall? Is it rejecting me because I'm overweight? Or is it rejecting me because I don't have a good credit score in its opinion? So I think those are things that need to be clearly delineated. So I think, and the most exciting prospect of AI's work is going to be in adaptive biometrics and voice-led payment systems. If that can happen, I can tell you that's a game changer. It's a game changer because if ever imagine if uh, if digital and process literacy can be given on the go in a local language using an ordinary non-smartphone to any user, and I think that's the ultimate in terms of ability to transact financial inclusion. Okay. Thank you, Akash. I think I've taken enough time, so this is good enough. Let's open up to questions. Right?
For sure. Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh.
Was I'm clear. I covered everything and more than in the script.
Great. Yeah, so it was quite insightful. And uh, anyone have any question or queries regarding to the use of AI in financial inclusion or your personal life, or the apps you use? Just thinking about the examples Ramesh gave, Ramesh, it just came into my mind that
Yes.
it usually happens that when we talk about anything, any of the topics, let's say if we talk about cricket, an SMS pops up in your phone talking about cricket or giving you some crazy mobile application advertisement or something like that. So it makes me wonder how safe is our data and our personal lives are in
True.
terms of the use of AI and how AI has been a part, I mean, has become a part of our life. And is it good to have these kind of tech-based solutions which are regenerative? Or, I mean, how is it going to reshape the world? I just wonder, because you're
See,
working on the financial.
I think it's a very good question, Akash. I'm working a lot on generative AI with Google. Okay, I work with Google and I work with a couple of other companies in the United States, and I can tell you only this: there is the danger is always there. But if you ask me, it's coming, it's coming, it's granted. Yes, it is. It is coming. There's no other way. So the what is the solution here? Solution is to make sure that it's the AI model is as transparent as possible. Number one, two, keep fighting for data privacy issues and keep fighting for uh, data quality, right? So that see, look at the opposite side. What are the dangers of AI? The AI can profile and eliminate inclusion. Am I right? It can profile.
Right, certainly.
Yeah, it can profile and eliminate inclusion. It can cause us breach in privacy, as you rightly say, right? It's quite scary. And there are many times I'll tell you, I use AI a lot, but many times I switch off all my I when there are times when I want to have an extremely private conversation with a friend or somebody else, we put the phones on the table, switch off the phones, switch off the laptops, and then move to the balcony where there's no chance or scope for here. Not that I'm doing anything wrong, but I'm just saying I'm very conscious that these things are listening. They're already listening, right? So there is a loss of privacy. You're right. So it's something we need to be conscious about. Um, the move towards generative AI is still at its infancy. The move to regulate this might there is a feeling that it might stifle it, but I think it's going to start in the United States, and you're going to see more. And hopefully, I think if you get the data right, if you get the data quality right, and if you get the data privacy right, and if you get the explainability right, I think you'll have got most of the safeguards in, but not all. As you rightly say, still you've got to be careful. But it's the point that I want to make is whether you like it or not, it's coming and it's here. It's already here, and it's going. And every mind you, Akash, every day is a new day in generative AI. Every day changes. I don't know if I answered your question, Akash.
Yes. Personally, I'm very curious about regenerative AI. When you talk about generative AI and especially ChatGPT coming around, you
Yeah.
ask anything. I
Yeah,
mean,
but see, the question is,
yes.
I want to share this point on ChatGPT and all that. It's got a lot of nonsense in here. So I mean, I mean, AI has got great uses in terms of the applications I said, but in terms of some of these open AI models and all that, the kind of data that they've trained it on is very biased and is very narrow. So you will not get the right answers. You will not get the right profile. You will not get the right things. So at your own risk, you would be using all of that. That's what I would say. And any data that you put in there is going to be learned teaching it. So that much of loss of privacy happens. You follow what I'm saying? If you type
Yes.
something in there, so your data is going to go in there in system and it's going to be regenerated somewhere else, right? So
Mm.
so I think that aspect I can be very clear. But the applications, so the very interesting applications are there. I'll give you an example. I'm working with a client in which is called Cardiac MRI AI system based out of Bangalore, right? It's an SME, and they have got a predictive AI model which looks at your which looks at your cardiac MRI scans and predicts the chances of heart failure in 3 years, 2 years, 5 years. And this has been tested along with Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Now it's also being tested with Narayan Hridyalaya in Bangalore. Now, once this model gets operational, it can mean a lot in terms of savings lives. So things like this, phenomenal. Applications of AI are great. But the things like those that you are saying, I think I would avoid AI there.
Yeah, and I also wanted to you to check based on one more point, since we have colleagues all across the country, and most of the profiles are in agriculture based implementation,
Sure.
farm based agriculture. So, is there a model where which our colleagues could leverage, or I mean, let's say if we talk about SHGs or the cooperatives working on agri-based models, is there any initiative? You talked about Stature and geospatial mapping and geotagging,
Right.
but uh, we still have time for those
Yes, it is
initiatives.
very nascent. It is very,
Yeah.
very nascent. And if you are thinking now, ideal application, I'll tell you, is FPO data. Now, FPOs are there, right? Okay. Farmers, producers, organizations. Now, if your FPO data, if you've got FPO data, that can become, it'll be very interesting if access to, I mean, I'm not pushing for more work for myself, please. This is not me asking for that. Since to answer your question, I'm saying this FPO data is there. Now, this FPO data, I'm sure, I don't know how many FPOs you're working with. Any idea, Akash? How many FPOs you're working with? 50, 100 numbers?
That one
Any
of
idea?
my colleague will have to answer that.
No, let's assume it's 50
Let's
or 20.
let's assume it's more than 100.
Yeah, more than 100. Now, imagine the data that they're all involved in different value chains. Imagine you pick up all that data and data on uh, the soil, correlated with data on soil, correlated with climatic conditions, agroclimatic conditions, correlated with other things there in each of those regions, and pick up traditional data from the other places. All of this comes into an AI model. You will have a phenomenal system which can predict, which can help underwrite loans to your the clients of the or the members of your FPs. So I mean, applications are, and there is nothing readily available. If you ask me, is there anything readily available? No. See, the whole problem with the AI is that it is always localized. At this point, it's always localized to certain areas. So when you get into a new area, you need data from that area. So if you're talking of Madhya Pradesh, if you're talking of Orissa, if you're talking of Andhra Pradesh, if you're talking of Telangana, if you're talking of West Bengal, you need data from that region to make sure, and then pull it all together, and then it becomes representative, and then it's got to be tried on a trial and error basis. But it can be used for agriculture underwriting. The one important place that I forgot completely was, sorry, so just slipped my mind, is warehouse. I've been working with on warehouse receipt financing, and that'll be very useful for your agriculture colleagues if I can take a couple of minutes. So we have used AI models, both in AI and AI IoT models in warehouse receipt financing in Africa and Latin America, where IoTs are used to measure the quality of produce coming in. IoTs, Internet of Things, is used. Sensors are used to measure the moisture levels, whether the grain is spoiled or something else is spoiled, and what is the temperature, what is the pressure, all of that, and it's able to alert both the storer, the and the lender on what is happening to the quality of the products. Now, if you see, a single biggest problem in warehouse receipt financing has been fraud, because either the produce is lost. I'll give you an example. I won't name the bank. About a few years ago in Kolhapur, in Maharashtra, nearly 140 crores was lost from a warehouse because they went in. Guess what happened, Akash? The entire warehouse was empty. Goods were stolen from the back. So there was nothing. So the lender, all the underwriting that was done based on quality of product was gone. Right? Okay. So now all these kinds of things, the fraud that occurs in warehouse receipt financing, the pilferage, the storage issues, the quality issues with the product, all that can be overcome with AI and IoT. In fact, I have a whole series of papers there. So I think warehouse receipt financing, more than agricultural lending, warehouse receipt financing has greater applicability, and your FPOs could get involved, and we could think of such models for them. It's straight away applicable. There are unique models available, not in India but outside, but they can be brought in and trained. And training won't take much time, because once you have the data, training them will take very little time. And what you typically do is that you take a data set and bifurcate it into two. You train on one and test on the other. And once that prediction is okay, then you go ahead and release it to the market. So the warehouse, good that you asked me this question. More than agricultural underwriting, warehouse receipt financing using AI IoT is at a fairly advanced stage and can be picked up by a lot of your FPOs. And I think it's very useful because I've been a practicing agriculturist for 30 years. And I'll tell you where a farmer is most vulnerable. A farmer is most vulnerable because he or she doesn't have the staying power, doesn't have the bargaining power, and doesn't have the negotiating power post harvest, because they're left with the perishable. They want the money, they have kharcha, and they don't know what to do. A post harvest arrangement like a warehouse receipt finance, a properly run warehouse receipt finance system using AI IoT would be of great help. Hope that was okay.
Yes, Ramesh, this was perfect. And thank you for your time. Anyone has any question, can raise your hand or unmute yourself and put it up, or you can put it up in the chat box also. We'll pick up from there.
Everybody's ready for the weekend, I guess.
I guess so. No issues, no issues. So I hope this session helped you with your understanding of AI in professional space. We tried to keep it revolving around financial inclusion, but Ramesh covered many other aspects also. I hope this was helpful, and thank you, Ramesh, for an insightful and very informative session.
Thank you.
Personal takeaway is that AI has an immense potential, but we have to make conscious decisions also.
Right. True. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, all of you. All right. Thank you, Akash.
Thank you, Ramesh. And
yeah, and
have a
they
great
can look at all the articles on the LinkedIn newsletter, the number of them pertaining to
Yes.
agriculture.
Yes, I have shared all the links with everyone in the organization, and I hope they would have seen or they'll see the articles.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramesh, for your time, and thank you all, and have a great weekend. You too,
You too.
Ramesh.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.